We went opening night for some reason. We just wanted to go to a movie. Thursday night, we said, why don't we go see this stinking Exorcist movie? Now, of course, you and I.
Yes, I know a secret that others don't know.
You and I and our ladies, just years ago at this point.
Yeah.
You came over to sit down. We were going to let's watch The Exorcist.
A movie that you had never seen before.
I'd never seen. My woman with whom I live had seen, but not for a long time.
I think we both had.
I think so.
I definitely had.
Yes, of course. No. So they came over. We were going to do
a cinema buff.
He loves movies and seeing them on a screen.
Yeah.
I prefer them on an Apple. Mm-hmm. So they came over and said, oh, it's a movie night. We started up, and within a few minutes, both myself and the woman with whom I live are fast asleep. I'm trying like hell to stay awake, but it's just... I know it's good, but it's the most boring thing I've ever seen. And so we fall asleep, and then I wake up at a certain point, and they're still
in Cairo
or wherever the hell they are.
Syria.
And then you were like, hey, I think we're gonna leave. And then you guys left, and we went to bed.
Yeah, it just seemed like I'm not gonna sit next to you while you're sleeping and finish this movie I've already seen.
Yeah.
The thing is with the first movie,
and by the way, I want to see it. It was just a bad time that night, okay?
And then it's dark in there, and it's
quiet. It's the slow burn. I know that that movie is that's why it's so great. This is
what's good about it.
Yes, I know that.
Correct.
I know all of that. It's the slow burn of.
But what you want sometimes when you're hanging out with your friends, you're like, let's put a scary movie on. You want to put it on, it's like ba ba da ba ba da ba. You're like, hey,
yo,
hey,
God,
hey,
look at that, yo.
Said you're sitting
or
somewhere.
It's so bad that you're like, oh my God, did you see that? Or it's so, crazy. You're like, oh God, and he's tied his butt to another guy's butt.
This is more
like Human Centipede.
Yes, and it's like, okay, so the last guy is getting the worst of it.
But Exorcist is more. It's a film. It's cinema. It's not to be watched with a group.
I don't know. Even at this point,
of course,
I know when it came out, very scary. I asked my mom as a joke. I said, "You want to go see the new Exorcist with us?" She said, she hung up.
Whoa.
But I think now, of course, I think it is seen as more of for the art. Like, oh, this is what it was back then, and it still is kind of shocking, some of the parts. But it is the slow burn and getting to meet the family and spend time with them. Right. There's so many movies now. It's like, I don't care about it.
Yeah.
They just try to get to it. So you had never seen it, but you went to see the new one.
I said, you know what? Why don't we just go see it? Because
you probably don't need to see the old one.
No,
or you know enough about it.
Here's what I know. I know that a little girl gets demonized.
Yes.
She gets
demonized and then she gets exorcised.
That's right. That's what I know. And I know that this,
does she?
Obviously, because that's what we've been doing for the last decade now.
Yes.
This is obviously a soft reboot of the franchise. Nickname. Soft reboot. Where the old lady from the first one is going to be in it, like Han Solo, for no reason, really, except to show that she's not grown as a character at all and actually regressed. And just like in Halloween, we'll trot Jamie Lee Curtis back out to show that she learned nothing except for fear and hatred while she
regressed.
She regressed as a person.
It's a David Double G sort of.
Well, it's the only way that people, for some reason, these creatives, it's the only way they can even dream of getting someone into a decades-old franchise when you don't have to do that at all. That's my big complaint of this movie, is that the worst parts are when they're trying to connect it to some past thing. I don't need any of that. The only thing I need is a demon infecting a girl or two girls. Fine.
Why is it so hard to, like, Rob Zombie did his sort of reboot of Halloween.
No.
And I thought we all understood, like, it's not really a remake. Like, it's not a remake. It's sort of a reboot of the franchise because you're starting from scratch again.
Yeah.
So it kind of is a remake, but not really. Because, like, but you can just do that.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a part of me that understands the appeal of Halloween and going, Jamie's back. She was in H2O.
I get that.
You know what I mean?
More so than I get The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Because
I get it, and I think they did it poorly by the third of the new Halloween movies. It was
those are not good either.
Some of the worst stuff I've ever seen. And I just can't figure it out because they do some of my favorite. I've told you, Righteous Gemstones is truly one of my favorite. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
They're talented people.
So stop doing this.
I just don't. I don't get. But maybe they'll. My hot take, because everyone hates this movie. My hot take is it's actually pretty good despite some huge flaws.
Okay, so the movie gets over when I'm there, and I'm about to say a spoiler. So if you really don't want to know, just stop. Mm-hmm. But the people that have been sitting behind us get up to leave, and the one girl goes. She turns to her friends and goes, "So the other girl just died," and her friend said that movie sucked, and then the woman with whom I lived turned to me and she was like, "Yeah, that was terrible," and that kind of made me. I was like, I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
It is bad, I do have to say, because this one, as we are tied together by a thread here, I dozed off for a little bit. I was so bored. That's the biggest problem, is that I find the movie to be boring. Not even like, here's where I am with the movie.
Lay it on me.
Because I know you kind of like it.
Don't worry about my feelings. I am fine with it being bad.
Yes, but
I think I was able to enjoy it having not seen any of the other ones.
Here's the
just
thing.
Because. Go ahead.
Even the first one, like, I'm not Mr. Exorcist.
Right.
I did just buy the book today because I've been looking for it, and it's kind of hard to find like an old copy of it with a creepy cover.
Yeah.
Found it today, bought it. I'll read it. But I think I like the first one. I've seen 2 and 3, and they're both kind of weird movies, just in terms of like horror movies to watch.
Sure.
I get the cultural relevance of the first one, but I'm not like, you don't need to do this. Like, I want to see a new Exorcist movie.
Yeah.
That's the stuff I want to be scared by. So I knew it had a 20 whatever % on Rotten Tomatoes. And so going in and watching it, I was like, this is actually not bad. They film it kind of like the same way.
Yeah,
not in a way that's like, oh, they're just ripping off the whole thing. It's a style of filmmaking that I like. I like that you can't kind of hear what they're saying a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It's very like naturalistic. You get to know the family. They kind of do the backstory with the mom. And you're like, it's going to be kind of demonic. This is creepy.
Sure.
My problem, and then even going into like the thing in the woods that people somehow can't understand, like that's just a thing kids do.
Right.
They go find a hole in the ground and like that's their hideout.
Well, if you're wondering why, it's because obviously the daughter, I mean, it's all in the movie. The daughter knows that the mother had some spirituality. She's connected to her mother's stuff.
Yeah.
That is rooted in this sort of opening scene where a woman performs some kind of ritual to protect the daughter.
Yes.
Then the mom dies. So the daughter is trying to reconnect and talk to her dead mother. Simple.
Yeah.
She becomes,
and I think even without that set,
without
that setup,
it's also
you understand
doesn't
the
matter.
idea of grief.
Yes,
of
this
this
course.
Girl that's never known her mom.
Yeah,
wanting to connect with her in some way.
Yeah, of course. And I found it interesting that the parents, you have these two families from completely different backgrounds who don't think that their kids even know each other. They don't know each other. And they're like, why are our kids together?
Which is also realistic. Like, people forget when they were a kid. It's like, I had friends that It's like, I'm going to X's house, whatever. My parents would be like, who? Or like,
X, my friend.
someone from school, like,
Used to be called Twitter.
yeah, is,
Yeah.
a Musk kid.
I know. But
Muskie. Oh, Muskie.
But not only that, the main character girl, knows that the Christian girl and they set that up too. She's a part of the youth group. She does this and that. She's a devout Christian. So she knows that that this girl is also a spiritual, sort of connected to that type of thing. So that is who you want to bring down with you to the devil hole.
This is all great to me. I like that it happens. I like that they don't show it. I like that they just disappear and show back up.
Yeah.
I love this stuff. I love the stuff when he brings her home. There's kind of that funny jump scare where like the light turns off and all of a sudden she's standing next to him in the bathroom.
Yeah, that stuff was good.
That's all good.
I like before she's even home when he goes in and you think it's going to be her, but it's someone else performing
and it
a
scared
ritual.
the shit out of me.
It's very
because they
scary.
turn and it's like, that's not her.
Yeah.
And it's like, why is that happening?
Right.
That's all great.
That's good stuff.
The problem I have is you've set up and atmospherically I'm in it with you.
Yeah.
And then you bring the movie to the biggest halt I've ever seen.
The emergency break is just...
And like Dan Aykroyd emerging from the shadows in a new Ghostbusters movie, they start to set up this woman like she's an old Avenger. And you know who it's going to be. And then they bring in the Tubular Bells theme song. And it's like, okay, so she's like a... And then you start to get her backstory. And it's like, this has nothing to do with this story. I was not curious about her, mainly because her story ends in the first one. They do the next two, which you can take or leave as canon, And she's a good actress in the first. Like, she's great as the mom.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at her.
No, she's got
I'm
her
mad
money.
at them for pulling her out of retirement. And then, like, he goes to this beach house.
It's all mind-boggling.
It took me out of it in a way I've never been taken out of something. Where, like, then he's like, oh, my daughter's still possessed, so we have to go back.
Yeah.
By that point, I was just out of it. The first half, I thought the setup was great. And then to have to bring her into it and do all that, I never got back into the movie. Which
amounts to her not doing anything. Like she
even said, because she has to recap the Exorcist, which is like, I wasn't actually even in the room during the exorcism.
Because the patriarchy. And then you just want to... I don't care. That's the other thing about the movie that... Okay, so yeah, I agree. That stuff, it just grinds the movie to a halt. And you're like, what are we even doing here? Because you're talking to an old lady. We know... I haven't seen the movie, but I know everything about it. I don't need her to tell me.
The exorcism,
And then she goes to help the little girl in the house. Obviously, she can't do anything. She's 100,000 years old.
Which is...
I'm worried about her walking up the stairs. You can't make me... No amount of movie magic is going to make me believe that she's going to successfully rid a demon from a little girl.
I also truly felt bad for her that she says... which I don't understand why Reagan has just disappeared.
Right.
From what happens in the first movie, and then even she's in the first two sequels. None of that sets up that her daughter would just leave and not talk to her again. That doesn't make any sense. For her to leave and she's like, I don't know where my daughter is. It doesn't make sense. And then all she wants is to see her daughter again. So they stab her eyes out.
Right.
So she can never see her daughter again. But I felt so bad for her. I know it's a horror movie, but I'm like, come on.
So they stab her eyes. They take her to a hospital. And then you forget about her for a while. Then they do this whole, like... All of a sudden, the style of the film has changed to, like, when they gather all of the Avengers of the religious groups of the world, which is the other... I'll get back around to this, but that's my other major complaint. But they gather all the religious Avengers to exorcise the demons. None of them basically work, but it's just the dad loving his daughter more than the white people love their daughter. it's dicey stuff here at the end. But then we are reminded that the old bag is still in her hospital because she's like, oh, like she has some spiritual connection suddenly.
Yeah.
Like she can feel what's happening miles away.
Which doesn't make any sense because
She's just a lady, right?
even without seeing the first one,
Yeah.
she's just it just so happens that their neighbor saw a woman on a talk show talk about an exorcism. They could have talked to anyone that had experienced an exorcism. If exorcisms in this world are real and happen that way, where it's like people's heads are having crosses cut into them and they're
Right.
throwing up and their heads are spinning around,
Right.
then that has happened to other people in the
Right,
world.
right.
They could have gone to anyone that had actually experienced it. Instead, they go to a mom
Who
who
wasn't a part
there.
of it.
And The Exorcist, the movie, is about The Exorcist. Like, if any of those old ass guys from the first one were still alive, like that's probably who you'd bring back. Like, you got to bring back The Exorcist,
Right.
But because it's like it follows them in their life too. You think the movie's slow at the beginning? Wait till you go see Mama Exorcist.
Well, isn't the whole point too of The Exorcist is like she doesn't believe necessarily in God or in any of
Right.
this. She's just trying all of the different routes that you can go to help your child.
Yeah, she's a Hollywood liberal.
Yeah.
So that's the fun part. It's a good movie.
I'm sure it
They're
is,
on
and
a movie set.
I do want to watch it.
They
I'm
kind of
just-
set up that like why she's gonna be needing an exorcist, and you're like creepy. Just little things like that. But this is just like so in your face, and it's just like a character that no one was like, I wonder what happened to the mom.
That's
from
the thing.
Exorcist. And then you're saying they cut back to her. She's just a lady, and she wrote a book about her daughter getting an exorcism.
Yeah.
And like sold it for money and whatever. So that's just like, and it makes it so not scary. I want to be scared. I care about the story and I want to care about the characters, but just to take me like, all that stuff grinds it to a halt because it just reminds you like, oh, you could just leave the house. Like,
Yeah. You can just walk
he's like, my
out.
daughter's in this mental, he's like, what? He's thinking of getting her placed in an institution.
Right.
But then he can just leave and go talk to this woman. And
Yeah. So it's not a super big deal.
And then they cut to the
I mean, yeah.
Catholic church, like the Exorcist, and he's like,
Right.
"Can I do this?" And they're like, "No."
So here's the other big issue I have with this movie is we are in a time when the darn Hollywood liberal elites, we can't believing in God is bad. You can't it's the wrong thing to do. Which whatever you believe out there, kind listener, that's not what I'm saying, but that's what movies say now. Which is fine. And I don't disagree with the even the premise, but this movie and The Exorcist in general is literally demonic Catholic demon takes over a girl, and because it is the same demon from the first one, yes? Because it's like, I remember you.
Yeah,
And she's like, I know that demon.
like Pazuzu came back or
Yeah.
whatever.
But even if that wasn't the case, the whole thing is like,
But that's when the logic breaks down. It's like you can't be saying like, and actually it's like trying to make some statement about Catholicism while putting like you're saying, that would be the antidote.
Yeah.
The Exorcist.
Right.
You're in the universe also of the first Exorcist movie.
that's, yeah.
Something you've set up that like does he win at the end? I can't exactly say, but the idea is you have an exorcist to exorcise the demon,
Right.
and then it doesn't work.
Well, and so this movie gets around the Catholic Church not helping by...
So they go to like a spiritualist, sort of like a
Well, first they make the Catholic priest guy. He's like, yeah, my hands are tied. Bureaucracy, which is like, yeah, organized religion. Haha, it's bad. I agree. But then they go to the spiritualist lady who's like, this is also a part that's like, I don't need any of this. He meets her at a gravesite, and she's like, my oncology. Used to be a very successful oncologist, but then I just tuned all of this stuff out because it's just like,
Then when this gets going and she's helping with the exorcism and smoke comes out of their mouths,
Yeah.
she's like, it's just getting started. And it's like, there's no like part two to.
No, we have no idea. That's the thing, because at least from what I know of other Exorcist type movies, there are rules established where you come in, you say a verse, you do the holy water, you show a crucifix. These are steps that you can take, and it ramps up from there. Now you bring in, a spiritualist and a lady who was going to be a nun but couldn't for certain reasons, but she kind of believes in God still, and all this stuff, and all the power of all of them just loving each other is going to make it, which is basically what the end monologue amounts to, where the bad actor in the movie it's the big long monologue where she's like, I really think it's actually about being a community and loving each other.
That sealed its fate for me.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Would not be watching it again. But like with the Catholic priest again, like you're saying, the bureaucracy of the church. From what I understand of the Catholic Church having real exorcists, and the first movie kind of being about that and how they go about getting permission to do this, it's always because it's like it is a very strict like sequence of events that have to happen, because most of the time, all the time, it's mental illness.
Yes.
And they're like, it's a mental illness thing, because actual exorcists are not like people crawling on the walls. Right. It's someone shaking in bed and being like, I'm going to kill you. Yeah. I'm going to kill you. So they're like, well, they need a therapist.
Right.
And they're like, it has to be very extenuating like circumstances where we send in an exorcist to do this, because it can be dangerous for a lot of people. The fact that these girls look like this and like the stuff that's happening to them is like they're disembodied, the voices and like things being carved into their body and stuff, that's not enough for the Catholic Church. Like that's a real, they need an exorcism.
Their foreheads have grown to sizes heretofore never seen. And that's really what, if you think you're in an exorcist situation, just check your forehead. If it has grown and your hairline is kind of pushed back in a way that is startling,
mind your head.
You might need an exorcist. But yeah, the first half I really loved.
I was like, why? Because if you just kept up that momentum and that style, but I still worry that the end kind of would have been like that if the end was the same.
Well, so even charitably looking at the end, so there's the black family and the white family,
which I also called the second they mentioned that it tricked them. And so it's like, tell us which one you love. And I was like, the dad's going to say he loves his daughter, and it's going to be a trick.
Right. Well, the dad doesn't say he loves his daughter.
I choose Rebecca.
He chooses his daughter, which of course to the devil means...
They're like, you chose to kill. It's like I don't know, like a creep show comic or like a Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it's like, well, actually, the fact that you could choose shows that you're evil or whatever. So, but then that does work for me. Like, I felt just gross when the dad chooses, I choose Ramantha. And then, the demon's like, I tricked you. The guy, the single dad and his daughter are fine.
Yes.
And then the white couple is like, oh my God. They're terrified and so devastated because their daughter, who was just awake and fine, is now gonzo. And then we cut back to the sort of devil, or like the hellhole in the forest, and the little girl wakes up.
And she gets dragged to hell.
And she's just like, mommy. And you just, even, it's sick.
It's sick, but here, you don't want to know it's sicker. I felt like that was cool But I wish we had spent any time with them.
Well, that's the
We
trouble.
get to know the girl that's going to survive, which is fine, but it's like, take out literally everything with Grandma Reagan.
Yes.
And I want to get the same treatment of, like, if you want to be beholden to how the first movie works and made it one of the biggest, one of the most well-known movies of all time, you could maybe stick with that formula and, like, let me know and care about this family and the single dad, and let me know and care about this girl whose parents, they go to church and maybe she's a little skeptical, but her parents don't know that, and maybe she believes in something, but she also knows about some stuff that, like, there's something going on in the afterlife, and let me bring this to my friend whose mom is dead.
Yeah.
And I can help her, like, try to help her. She's trying to be nice. And then you give us that, you care about this person.
Right.
This, like, 15-year-old that then gets taken to hell.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's
scary.
When that happens and you just see this girl crying for her mom as she's dragged to hell.
Yeah.
You're like, God, I wish, like, you care just on a human intrinsic sort of level of, like, that's a little girl who's being dragged to hell and all she wants is her mom. That devastates someone. But in that moment, you're also like, well, I wish I didn't hate her parents because you've cartoonishly made them into the right-wing conservative people that, like, that's what I just hate this shit that they keep doing, where it's like the right-wing conservative white family is obviously this way, and obviously
they're skeptical of the single black father.
Yes, of course. Like,
if we didn't know they were friends, and, like,
if you want to do the racial stuff, actually do it, because this doesn't work for anyone anymore. You're not doing anything. You're not being brave. You're not being cool. You're not being smart. You're not doing any real work. No one.
The most, like, well put together guy I've ever seen.
Yes.
He's like, I'm Lamar Odom Jr. And they're like, that's where I know you from.
Leslie.
Oh, excuse me.
I think, right? We'll cut that. It's in Halloween movies that this guy did were full of this too, and it's just so it's not doing anything for anyone anymore. You had your chance a few years ago when people were just like, isn't it, look, I get my points for making my movies be snarky this way and inclusive that way. But if you're not making real people, real characters that people care about, it doesn't work.
And it's like there's 5 Purge movies where the bad guys are the right wing.
Yeah.
Like,
you can do it successfully, but you're not doing it successfully.
Then
so
do
you
it.
Should just...
That's why I'm like, let us know the family more. Because, like you're saying, you're just seeing a caricature. You're seeing a sketch of that family. It's like, I do want to feel scared and want both of them to be getting out of it. But because of the way the movie is set up, you know that, it is kind of like, they're going to kill one of them. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But, like, it's the one that we know you're going to kill.
Yeah.
It would be surprising if you killed the one you set the whole movie up getting to know.
Yeah.
And then they lose.
Yeah.
That
would be something. Because we also know that this is going to be a trilogy, unless they just cut their losses and say, never mind. But probably not going to do that.
I don't know. I don't know how much it made. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure box office wise. But if you know you're doing a trilogy, that could be cool, where you take a movie to set up this girl who we think is going to be the main, and then you do kill her. And then we
follow this.
We have that sort of, now we have a schism between these two families.
And you've got the trauma on this child.
Yeah.
That we're now meeting more. I don't know, it's just so it was just such a strangely put together film.
It's very weird. It's just another one of these where it's like, it feels half baked.
Because I don't feel like the original Exorcist is trying to, you can watch it and you can dissect it and get what you think they're trying to say.
Yeah.
But it's just scary, and you watch this, like, normal life slowly, like, devolve into this nightmare situation.
Yeah.
And this is trying to, like you said, make 800 points about,
well,
like that woman's monologue at the end.
Yeah. Where it's like,
stop.
And there are some interesting things where there is room for exploration that went to tying it to the franchise, but it should have gone into like this super conservative Christian family should believe in the demon stuff just by way of, that's what they are told every Sunday, and they go to youth group and they go to Bible study, all this stuff. They should be right on board with this. But the dad isn't. He doesn't take his shoes off when they tell him to. He does, there's stuff like that where it's like, wouldn't it be interesting to have them have a conversation about this where like the skeptical single black father is like, you guys don't even believe in this. Why are you trying to make me believe in this? I see you're not taking your shoes off. The mom is just doing that. You're not doing this because you believe in it. You're doing it because there's no other choice. Something like that, where they have to confront their actual belief, because what are we even talking about? I mean, that's the whole point of the movies, I think.
Yeah.
Is that it's a crazy thing, but you have to, at the end of the day, realize that it's outside of our scientific understanding of the world. It's about a belief in something bigger.
Well, maybe someday they'll let us come aboard and do some rewrites. I can only hope.
Well, it's too bad, because you do have, like, the first half is cool. You have a cool opportunity to do something new with the franchise, but it's the same stuff we've been seeing. It's the same shit with Star Wars. You just kind of rehash the old stuff, and then some other guy comes in for the second movie and acts like he's going to rewrite the history books, and then by the end everything is basically reset to exactly where it was. And you're like, well, great.
Like this, how do they make this a trilogy?
I don't know.
Just because the end is, it's like the end of kind of a teen horror movie where it's like two of the friends accidentally get demons in them, and they're like, they have to band together and get them out. So it's kind of like not really scary, but you're just watching them try to fight evil.
And there's a nice moral of the story at the end that
I want to be scared. The bad guy in the movie is the devil. Scare me. Scare me, oh mighty scarer. Splice this in earlier.
Okay.
Leslie Odom Jr.
And that's the thing. That early on, there was some scary stuff. Like some good tension. Even the quick editing of like between the ritual going on when they were in Africa.
And just the hopelessness you feel throughout.
Yes.
That's the scary thing. It's like, this is real. Yes, and you're even from the ritual, you're worried because you're like, don't do that.
I know, but then that's what saves her.
But guess
or
what?
does it? Because we don't get any answer at the end except for just
We get a big
community.
but we get the twist that she said, save the baby, and he's like, save the mom. And he's like, you didn't even want me.
Right.
La, 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 la.
Also, the other thing is like the first, and I haven't seen it, but I've seen it recreated over and over again. The first one did everything that you could possibly do with a little girl being taken over by a demon.
Right.
That's so disgusting and disturbing that you couldn't even think of anything worse. So it's kind of like at this point, you're like, oh,
And they didn't even try.
no,
In
they
this
didn't
one,
even
they
try.
don't even come close.
Yeah, they're not even worried about trying.
But of course, at the end, we get our knight in pleather. She kneels down by her blind mother's side,
yes,
and she says, Reagan! And guess what? She's fine.
she's
She's
fine.
doing pretty well off.
Seems
Why did she not talk to her mom? She's just like, it's me, Mom. I'm here. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. Like she's coming over for Christmas turkey. Just stupid.
Yeah. I'm excited for the second one when she is the star.
Yeah.
And she's Jamie Lee Curtis, where she's like, I don't trust anyone. That's why I have this. She opens her coat and it's like a bunch of crucifixes.
Yeah.
Like vials of holy water.
When I had this happen to me, let me tell you, the devil was a bad mama jamba. Because she's dressed like she's in the 70s still.
Yeah.
So she's kind of a groovy cat. And it'll
Anyway.
be bad.
Yeah.
Well, what do you give it out of 5 foreheads? Did you give it a 5 head? That's the best.
I,
4 head out, is normal.
yeah. Unfortunately, while the characters who did have demons in them had about a 10 head, I will have to give this I got to go 2.5 head.
Yeah.
Because half of it was, in all honesty, great.
But I fear it was less than half.
Yeah, it probably was
So
if you actually look at the runtime.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 2 heads. No, sorry, 2 heads. I'm going to give it a 2 head.
Yeah. And I'll give it a 2.5 head. I liked it a little more than you did.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll cut this out and just put this up as a little 30-minute Exorcist episode.
Yeah.
Because...
Yeah, and cut out the part where I called the guy by the wrong name.
Yeah, we'll see.
There's some cutting that needs to happen. There's a joke Frankenstein said that cannot go in. Well, and this is probably confusing if this is its own episode.
Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.